Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to a very special program where we are, in fact, honored to be joined by Governor Christie, former Governor Christie. By the way, Governor, they still call you governor because once you're the governor, you're always the governor, right?
Yeah, that's kind of seems like the way it works. There's some people who don't, Steve, but most people do.
And there's some people who weren't actually elected governor that want to be called governor, but we won't talk about that.
If you don't want to, I'm happy to.
No, I'm not, because there are bigger picture issues. We're taping. I'm going to make it clear. You'll see it on the screen. You know, we never try to hide when we're taping because it's the 13th of January, historic day. There's a vote taking place in Congress, likely in the House for President Trump to be impeached a second time, the first president that will ever happen to. Governor, let me ask you, the series is called Democracy at a Crossroads. What is that crossroads as you look at where we are today and where you think we're going to be over the next couple of months?
Well, listen, I think that what happened on January 6th tells us that words matter, actions matter in a democracy more than almost anything. The way we argue with each other, the way we debate, the way we discuss, and the way we accept the verdict of democracy. And I think that the biggest sin the president has committed over his 4 years has been his conduct in the last 9 weeks. I said it on election night that there was no evidence that he had presented a fraud in the election. He continued to say it, though, for 9 weeks with no presentation of evidence. But a lot of people in the country, and rightfully so, want to believe their president. And so when the president continued to say the election was robbed, that it was a fraud, that he had won in a landslide, even though all the evidence was to the contrary, some people still believed it. Those words matter. And it's what led to the riot on January 6th on Capitol Hill. His actions, his words, his conduct inspired those people to do what they did.
So let's do this. Again, it is the 13th of January as we tape. This vote's taking place. Joe Biden will be the president on the 20th. This will be seen after, in February, March, et cetera. But Governor, you're also the former U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. In fact, we were my colleague Rafael P. Roman in public broadcasting. I think we did one of the first interviews with you in that role. You're a law and order guy. For those who believe in Donald Trump, even after he's not president, but say they believe in the rule of law and law and order and respect police, support those in blue, how does that comport with what happened on January 6th?
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, if you believe in law and order, then what you could have done if you want. So I had no problem with people marching up to the Capitol, Steve. And if they want to march outside the Capitol and yell and scream and, get a microphone and let the people inside that building hear what they had to say, that's a very American thing to do. And I would have been more than happy to see that happen, because people would have been expressing their point of view, which is what this country's all about. But when you see the video of what happened up there and the still photos, that shows disrespect for the people that you were assaulting, that you were, in some instances, murdering. We had 2 police officers die up there. We had an Air Force veteran who was part of the crew trying to enter the building killed. And the president let us down on this too, because for a couple of days till Sunday, after the police officer, Capitol police officer who's from New Jersey, Officer Skipnick, was murdered, the flag was at half staff at the Capitol, but not at the White House.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think the president was angry about the entire incident and that he was being blamed for it, and didn't want to acknowledge that officer's sacrifice. I brought it up on
ABC
on Sunday and said, how can you say you're the law and order president? I do that, and then a couple of hours later, the flag was lowered to half staff as it should be. If we are, as I was, enraged by the protests this past summer surrounding social justice, when they turned violent and when they turned to looting and to destroying property and hurting people, well, we must be equally incensed by what happened on Capitol Hill. Violence like that and rioting and looting and destroying our institutions, whether they're private institutions or the most public institution we have in this country, the Capitol, they're all wrong. And if you're really a law and order person, you don't speak out just against one, you speak out against both.
So, Governor, let me ask you, the longer-term implications of this. You and I have had so many conversations, both on the air and off, and there are times that we've gone back and forth, and everyone who knows you knows that you never hold back, and you're aggressive, and you're strong, and you're tough, and you say what's on your mind, get the hell off the beach. That being said, what is the difference between the way you have governed and the way you communicate in your style and what we have seen in the Trump presidency, where, let's be clear, you were supportive of Donald Trump, voted for him twice, as you said. What is the biggest difference between the way you have governed and your style of communicating and Donald Trump's?
Well, I'll specify right now in these last 9 weeks in particular, Steve.
As we tape the last 9 weeks. And we don't, by the way, we don't know whether he has Twitter or not. It's irrelevant. He will still be heard in some way, Governor.
Sure he will.
Go ahead.
The difference is the truth. Now, you can be blunt and direct, and I think public officials should be. I think that's what the public wants. But you have to tell the truth. And when you're blunt and direct and you're lying, that's completely unacceptable. And it's an abrogation of your responsibility as an elected official. And to me, that is the single biggest difference. I also think that I used and attempted to use bluntness and directness to frame an issue in order to reach a compromise. The president has not done that. I think that's the other big difference between our styles.
What's Joe Biden's, as this program has seen, he'll be the president the 20th of January and obviously beyond. What is the biggest challenge he faces and what is the greatest opportunity, Governor Christie?
I think the biggest challenge he faces is controlling his own party. You know, now that they have majority in the House and the Senate and the White House,
the Democrats.
The Democratic Party has tended, when they've had this, in the last two presidencies where they had it, in the Clinton presidency and the Obama presidency, in those first 2 years, to have drastically overreached, to have misread the appetite of the American people for the type of change that they've advocated for. And as a result, they lost Congress both times, in 1994 and in 2010. Joe Biden lived through both of those. The first time as a member of the Senate, going from the majority to the minority, and the second time as the vice president of the United States. And I think his biggest challenge is going to be reminding his colleagues of that lesson and trying to get them to implement the change they want to implement, but to do so in a way that doesn't overreach. I think his biggest opportunity is because of how long Joe Biden has been in government, because he's literally been in the federal government for nearly 50 years. He has an opportunity to say, I've seen a lot over these last 50 years, and I want to work with Mitch McConnell, even though he's now the minority leader. I want to work with Kevin McCarthy. I want to find common ground on things like infrastructure and national defense policy. And if he does it, I think he presents his party and his country with a great opportunity to heal. And so I think that's his biggest opportunity, and the overreach issue is his biggest challenge.
I want to talk to you about COVID in just a moment and your personal experience around COVID and the public service announcement that the governor has been putting out. By the way, Governor, how can people check out that? They've seen it everywhere, but where can, if they want to just go online and see it, where can they find your public service announcement?
They can go to the COVID Collective, Steve. You go to the COVID Collective on the internet, and they're the group that sponsored the public service announcement. So you go there and you'll be able to see the ad and a few others that have been made.
By the way, yeah, I'm changing my mind. I'm going to stay on that. You were very outspoken that you made a mistake. You made a series of mistakes around how you handled yourself during COVID, particularly at the White House. Remind people of those mistakes and the message you want to share with people right now. Again, the 13th of January, February, March, April, COVID will be just as real. Go ahead, Governor.
Will be here with us. And I, listen, for 7 months, Steve, from March until October, I wore a mask whenever I went out of my house, washed my hands 10 or 12 times a day, stayed out of big groups, did all the things that the public health advisors were telling us to do. And as a result, I stayed healthy for 4 days in the White House, thinking I was in a safe place because everyone was getting tested, including myself, every day. I took my mask off and interacted with other people during preparations for the presidential debates. And it was a huge mistake. And what it taught me was, and what I'm trying to have other people benefit from my experience is, there is no safe place from this virus. No safe place. Excuse me, because even if the White House is not safe, where people who come in there are being tested every day, there is no safe place in this country. And so put your mask on. I did it for 7 months and stayed healthy. Is it 100% guarantee? No. But what we now know from statistics over the last 9-10 months is that you're twice as likely to get COVID if you don't wear a mask than you are if you do. Yeah. And I can tell you, Steve, from having had it, it's not something you want to get.
You were in the ICU, and you were very candid about that experience and how afraid you were, and that your family was. And so, number one, most importantly, we're glad you're doing well.
Thank you.
30 seconds on the vaccine again. We're taping on the 13th of January. Things are going to change. The CDC website will be up. Check it out. Biggest lesson that you believe we should be learning about vaccine distribution?
Oh, we're just not being aggressive enough.
As we speak right now.
Oh, as we speak right now.
Do you believe the Biden administration could, on the federal level, Governor, change that dramatically?
Well, I think in their tone they can, and I think that they will. But I think this really has been a predominantly a state problem.
A state problem?
Yeah, on the distribution of the vaccine. Because
not on supply, though, Governor.
No. On the distribution. Because let's face it, we're seeing in New Jersey and New York, we've distributed already less than 40% of the supply we have.
As we speak.
As we speak. That's outrageous. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to start to do some more aggressive things. Empty stores are going to be used as distribution centers here in New Jersey. Citi Field is going to be used as a distribution center.
Oh, you had to bring that up because you're a Met fan, but go ahead.
Well, listen, the Mets are giving and generous, and their new owner, Steve Cohen, but show that couple all you want, but nothing's happening at Yankee Stadium to fight.
Okay. We'll make a call. Go ahead, Governor.
4/7, they're going to be doing that at Citi Field. This should have been done from the beginning by all the leaders in the state government. And New Jersey, has not done a good job on this, Steve. And I can't understand why we weren't prepared. In New Jersey, we delayed giving it to our seniors for a week because we missed the paperwork deadline. And the Commissioner of Health said, oh, well, it's a lot of paperwork. Well, I don't know what the hell else she was working on, but could there be anything more important after all the seniors who have died in New Jersey? Could there be anything more important than getting our seniors the vaccine? My dad's 86 years old and has not yet had COVID. I want my dad to get the vaccine. And there's nothing more important than protecting our seniors at this point, who this disease has shown us are the most vulnerable in our society to this disease. And I'm hoping and praying that your dad gets the vaccine soon. My mom, my mom doesn't like when I talk about her age, so I'll leave that alone. Governor, can we do the Republican Party? And by the way, Judy Persicelli, the Commissioner of Health, we're actually taping in about an hour or so from now. We're taping several interviews today. She'll have an opportunity to make her case, and I'll ask her about that paperwork. That being said, Governor, the Republican Party, and it's no secret, you may run, who knows? You never tell me the truth about whether you're going to run for president or not. You didn't last time, you won't this time. Why should That's okay. What's that? Why should I? Okay, leave that alone. Do you believe, Governor, there really are going to be moving forward two Republican parties, those loyal, committed to Donald Trump, whether he can ever run for public office again, and those others who are not, like you, even though you were, but not a sycophant to the president,
You've challenged him, you've questioned, but you're still not going to change your Republican Party affiliation. Long-winded question. Two parties? Two Republican parties?
No more than there are two Democratic parties right now. You looked at the battle that went on in the primary between Joe Biden and the more moderate wing of the Democratic Party.
Trump doesn't change everything, Governor.
No, I don't think so, Steve. I think, everybody looks at the next election through the prism of the last one, and it is always a mistake because times will change, circumstances will change. Listen, a year ago right now, Donald Trump was the overwhelming favorite to be reelected. Overwhelming favorite. We didn't have COVID. COVID was still a good month or 6 weeks away from this January 13th date where we're taping. And so circumstances change. I think what's happening in the Republican Party right now, what will happen over the next couple of years, will be what always happens when you get your head beat. We lost the White House, we lost the House, and we lost the Senate in 4 years. When that happens, you better have a reevaluation of how you're communicating to the public and what issues you're talking about and who your leaders are. And so that's what's going to happen in the very same way that I recall when George W. Bush won his second term in 2005. A real reexamination went on in the Democratic Party that ultimately led to an outsider,
Barack Obama,
becoming the nominee and not the insider favorite Hillary Clinton. So this always happens in political parties, Steve. This is more dramatic because of the events of the past week up on Capitol Hill and because of the way Donald Trump's conducted himself since the election. But I do think that we'll wind up being in the very same spot we're always in when we lose, which is to reevaluate and then regather to try to present a new picture to the American public.
That is Chris Christie, former governor of the great state of New Jersey. Also, check him out on ABC with George Stephanopoulos on Sundays, right? And a whole range of other days because things happen all the time. But he also told me offline, he texted me and said, if I choose to run for president in 2024, Steve, you will be the person I tell first. Is that not a fact?
Yeah, sure. And I've texted that to 12 other people too. So good luck.
I knew, man, you just pick up those one line. I knew you'd be right there with that. Hey, Governor Chris Christie, thank you so much. Most importantly, best to you and your family. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
You got it. I'm Steve Adubato. That's Chris Christie. We'll be right back.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by IBEW Local 102, Hackensack Meridian Health, Gibbons PC, NJM Insurance Group, and by Operating Engineers, Local 825. Promotional support provided by AM 970 The Answer, and by Insider NJ.